I'm Jim Collison, and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on May 1st, 2018. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this live webcast, we do have a chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. Just look down there. It's available for you. The login button, bottom left-hand corner, choose that. Choose the guest account. Don't create a new one. Just guest, take the name and number out. Put your name in, hit submit, and you'll be able to ask us live questions when you're in the chat room. We also, if you're listening to the recorded version, I have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for any size organization. You can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, or use the contact form right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your Clifton Strengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video and downloadable audio. We call that podcasting. It's available for you all on our coaches blog. All the ways to get it and figure out how to do it are on the resources tab. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Don't forget to visit our new, well, I shouldn't say that as well, but we have a brand new BP10 site for you. You might have known that has moved if you're part of our builder profile, and a brand new book that's coming out on May 8th. Head out to gallup.com/builder, and we'd love to have you participate in that as well. One more thing, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app. You can subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're doing it on YouTube, and you can follow us on Spreaker. That way you get notified every time we do a webcast. Richard Sterry is our guest today. Richard's a founder of his company, Releasing Strengths. He's a Gallup certified strengths coach who regularly, and I emphasize that word regularly, contributes to the coaching community with his creative tools like Strengths Twins and Cascade, as well as providing technical services. Thank you for doing that, Richard, to coaches, and is introducing the strengths movement to his local church. Richard, welcome, and thanks for coming on this Call to Coach.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and it's wonderful to be here from just outside London in the UK.
No, it's exciting to have you. I said I'm particularly thankful for the technical work that you do out there as well. We have many times technical challenges in people getting through all the tools and whatever, and so I want to say thanks for helping me out. You've been very helpful in that space, and appreciate any technical support that you provide to other coaches out there in a Facebook group.
Yep, you're always welcome.
Richard, a little bit about you. Let's start with your top 5, and then a little bit about kind of you and the work that you're doing there. Give us that rundown.
Yes, certainly. Well, my top 5 kick off with individualization, learner, relator, maximizer, and harmony. So quite a combination there. My learner and maximizer often get me into trouble. Learner wanting to do something new, maximizer saying, hey, let's do something really new. And so never quite sure what's going to happen on that side. And then the other relationship building themes really help me understand people and get alongside people.
Yeah, no, and the maximizer, I think, we're going to talk a little bit about Cascade a little bit later. And I think that's an exercise in maximization, right? Of like, hey, we've got this tool, but I think I can write a tool that does it better. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I mentioned in your intro, you're doing some work with your local church. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, very much so. Using the Living Your Strengths book, I've worked with several small groups within my local church, and it's really been quite an eye-opener for them. Doing something like the Clifton Strengths is very, very different for them. It's not something they've been used to seeing, but if you bring it alongside all the biblical references, which are so parallel to the strength-based sort of concepts, it can give a whole new meaning to when people are giving work and service within a church environment, actually doing something they're passionate about doing rather than doing something out of a sense of duty. And there's been quite a transformational change in a few people by doing that process.
Yeah, and I think that probably applies to any kind of volunteer organization where you have a single purpose. The church, of course, is a great representation of that because it's so institutionalized. But if you think about those clubs, or if you think about where there's, I always say where there's 2 or more people gathered, there's conflict. And so oftentimes there's these opportunities, right, to work through people's top 5. We have done on the faith-based parts of Called to Coach, we've talked a lot about pairing that together with like spiritual gift inventories or some of those. Do you have in your church, besides working with Clifton Strengths, are you adding any other kinds of inventories in?
Not yet, but it's something that I'd love to do, because the two, with spiritual gifts and with talents and strengths, they really go hand in hand on that. Spiritual gifts being what God has called you to do, and the talents and strengths being how you can best do them.
Yeah, oftentimes in the church setting, it's not like money is just flying out of people's pockets. How did you get that justified, and how does that actually physically work in your church
Well,
with people taking strings?
I've worked purely within my own church and done it very much pro bono on that basis. So they've covered the cost of the materials and the books. But apart from that, I've just given my time for free on there, which I think is a great way of starting. And then you can really build from that, and then see how that can develop into something else later on.
Yeah, how long have you been doing that, and how are you measuring success?
Good question. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I've done 7 courses which I run, and so we've had about 80 people come through the process, which must be about a third or so of the congregation. Measuring success is always difficult, but I'm constantly hearing stories from individuals, and they're always talking about the course, or they're talking about their strengths, and so on, or they're having conversations with other people about their strengths, and starting to see 1 or 2 sort of partnerships forming as well, which is great. So there are a few things happening. We've got a few changes coming up ahead. So hopefully, using the foundation we've got now, that will prepare us for the changes in the future.
Yeah, change is always a great place, I think, to introduce strengths. That's a conflict is a great way of creating clarity. I think in groups and what you're doing and working things out. And so having that framework, I think, help us out. Speaking of conflict, not that you live in a country that's departing another country, when we think, or another organization, when we think about coaching, we haven't spent a lot of time, I'm going to admit, we have not spent a lot of time interviewing our coaches in Europe. Something I'm hoping to change over the next couple of months, as we've got you coming on and a few more coming on from Europe. Are there particular challenges that you guys see when you think about being a coach in the UK or being a coach in Europe? What kind of challenges do you guys face that may not necessarily be the same in other places?
Usually one of the first comments after somebody's taken the assessment and you ask the open question, how did you find it? Oh, it's very American.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah. How do you overcome that? I mean, certainly you can,
Well,
it is, but how do you overcome that?
it's a big apology at the beginning, and then we just deal with it. But we've got lots of friends in the US, and so we are all on the same planet, and we just got different ways of doing things. And so if there's something that doesn't quite resonate or doesn't quite fit, okay, let's find another word. Let's find an English word that fits with that. And that perhaps opens up 1 or 2 other conversations.
Yeah, I think one of the best questions we can ask, and you and I in the pre-show talked a little bit about this, okay, so what do you think? Like, if that's not right for you, what word could it be, or what word should it be? Right? We're driving towards outcomes, and so ultimately, do you feel like it gives you an opportunity in that clarification? Does it give you an extended opportunity to maybe let them or give them some advice you wouldn't normally get to give them?
I think it certainly helps in that sense. It also gives a little bit of flexibility, so that if something's not quite fitting right, you can say, okay, well, let's find a different way and let's make up our own way of doing it. And then you just steer them into a way which still following the same concepts, but just in a language that they can really resonate with and interpret and make their own.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting as I webcast around the world, the various ways that cultures approach these pieces. I think Europe, and I'm going to paint with a big wide brush here at this point. So I might offend somebody in the thing I'm about to say, but generally in Europe, they don't want to be, like American things are kind of, whereas in India, it's a little bit of a different, it's American. So it's kind of like, this is American. So maybe a little more positive. I do think that's a great opportunity. That's a great coaching moment in there.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like sometimes, even like in some of the translations we've done, nobody can translate better than the local coach on the ground living in that culture, right? And if we try to do it, it gets super messy. I'm not going to lie. And some of our translations that we've done, I've gotten some positive and negative feedback on them. Do you feel like that gives you an opportunity on the ground to have that conversation, that really meaningful conversation, and really get to the point as opposed to focusing on the words?
I think that's really the crucial thing, is not to focus on the words and get to the actual point. What's the meaning behind it? But absolutely go along with you in terms of it's the local translations, which are just so crucial and so important, and make sure they resonate. And you're talking to somebody with individualization at number one. So it's got to actually fit in with those individuals.
Yeah. No, right on. I appreciate it. Hey, let's talk a little bit about some of the technology projects that you've been working on, because I think some of them are pretty cool. For those of you who've come to talk about or to hear about Cascade, we're going to get that. We're teasing you. We're holding that to the end. But actually, I think a little more interesting, no, I shouldn't say it that way, a different project that is as interesting, let's just put it that way, is the work you've done on Strengths Twins. And this was kind of a community-born movement as we started. First of all, you always start with how unique am I? And there's the 1 in 278,000 number, and there's the 1 in 33 million. We actually know those numbers aren't all that accurate, to be honest. Now, not that we have that we have an exhaustive number in your database, but let's talk a little bit about Strengths Twins. What is it, and why did you make it?
Yep. It all started, I was in the UK when the summit was going on last summer, not able to get to the summit, but I was hearing a lot of talk about people wanting to meet up with their strength twin, and the strength twin being somebody with the same top 5 themes in any order. And so there were various conversations going on the social media and things. And then the trigger point for me was somebody had posted a whole load of people's names and email addresses and themes on social media. And I thought, hey, that doesn't feel right. There's got to be a better way of doing this. And so I think it was one Sunday morning, a couple of hours later, Strengths Twins was born. And so all it is just a page which I popped up on my website. You pop in your name, where you're from, and your top 5 themes. It goes into my database. It does the number crunching. And if it finds a match, you get a nice little certificate and an email to say, hey, here's your strength twin. It's as simple as that. So it's just a service. There's no charge for it. I don't do anything with names and addresses, so they're quite safe. They don't get sold on for marketing people or anything like that. So there's no commercial sense in it whatsoever, but it's purely just a piece of fun. Let's see what we can find. And I was quite taken aback by the results and what's been happening with this. And so far since August, we've found 45 pairs of twins. We've found 6 sets of triplets. That's 3 people with the same top 5 themes, 2 groups of quads, and 1 set of quins, or quinces, I think you say over there.
Yeah, that's too many matches for me. I can only get triplets and maybe quadruplets or whatever that is. But so how many total have you done then?
So we've got about 1,200 people in the database at the moment, and we've matched up about 120 people.
Yeah,
so it doesn't take a genius to work out that ratio.
Yeah, that's a 1 in 10, right? If we're thinking about that. By the way, for those who are listening on the audio, or if you're taking notes, releasingstrengths.com/strengths-twins. I put that in the chat room. We'll try to make that available in the show notes as well if you want to go out there. You really can just Google Strengths Twins. It'll probably be the first one to come up.
Yeah, actually, strengthstwins.com will get you straight there as well.
Perfect. Good to know. That's an easy one as well.
It is,
and I appreciate you getting that URL. So thanks for doing that. Do you think so? 1 in 10, right? So what is that like when you think about that? Like we talk about, again, 287,000 for top 5. We talk about 1 in 33 million. All of a sudden, the numbers don't match up. Richard, how do you reconcile that?
I think what's happened is it's a very much a small target audience who are responding to this. Partly it's been advertised a lot within coaches, so it's very much in the coaching environment. And also people with certain themes are a lot more inclined to want to actually participate in it. So learner, input, they're right at the top of the list. Self-assurance, competition, deliberative, they're right near the bottom of the list on that. And so you get a certain amount of skewing in that sense. And incidentally, if you have strategic in your top 5, 50% of the people who've got strategic in the top 5 who've registered have found their twin.
it's it is self-selective from that standpoint, right? Is that
It is, yeah.
we do have where people are coming in, so we need to be careful of those numbers. But I get this question in the Facebook group all the time, 1 in 33 million, 1 in 278,000. The bit is that's in a perfect world. Like if strengths were distributed evenly, we know from our strengths frequency reports that's just not true, right? They're not. So I love in this sense, one, I love the mission of this Strengths Twins because it gets people connected. What do you think, or what have you found the value in, and what's the success factors in finding that Strengths Twin? I mean, what do you find really valuable in finding that relationship with somebody who's very similar to you?
Well, I was really surprised just before Christmas, somebody registered their themes and actually had a twin with myself. I thought, oh, that's a bit of a surprise. It wasn't something I was expecting. And apparently she was very, very hesitant to put her themes in there because she has got individualization at the top. And she wanted to be the only one who had those themes. So anyway, we've had some fantastic conversations, and the conversation styles have been more along the lines of how we find social situations, what sort of issues and what sort of struggles we have during a social sort of time and that sort of thing. My woo is right down the bottom, relate is right at the top. Big networking events, all not really always for me on that sense. And she was having exactly the same issues and those sort of things. And so we were talking ways of using our other themes, how we can work in those different times. And it was great to have a conversation with what I would call your other self. So it's somebody else who really understands you and perhaps has been there or done something slightly different, and you can learn from each other with that.
We spend a lot of time in our power of two concepts of finding that opposite of you, right? Finding the person who can help round out those teams or creating the teams. I've really appreciated it, and I hadn't really thought through the sameness concepts as you and I in the pre-call were talking a little bit about this, and I've been thinking over the last 24 hours. I do love what you said there about I find this person who's similar to me, and then I've tried to find out how do they handle these kinds of situations for the reason I'm assuming, so that I can get through them and be more successful, right? How have you handled this to be successful? And there may be some clues in the way they're handling it that you haven't thought about. Have you run into those kinds of situations?
Absolutely. And so it's a really good way to sort of understand where they're coming from and what's happening with that. So I've had that conversation with my strengths twin that I've come across. What I've not heard very much about are any other strengths twins, what conversations they've been having, because I've very much done the matching process and let people pick up their own conversations from that. It would be great to hear a little bit more about that and what's been going on. And that may be a topic of conversation at another time.
Yeah, well, maybe we can move that to the Facebook group. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/call2coach, that's our open, big 10,000 member group that's out there. Love to have you. If there's strengths twins where you guys have a story like that, we'd love to hear about it. Throw that in the Facebook group, hashtag it strengths twins. So we can find those again. Richard, I would love to kind of hear, and I'd love to hear even both ends of the power of two, where it's similar on the strengths twin side, but then, how is that, what kind of things are you discovering about yourself in that process, as well as how are you using that in teams, or how is that working out, or some of those kinds of things. Head over to the Facebook group, drop that in there. Somebody start a thread like that. Make sure you hashtag it strengths twins. So we can find it again. Well, now there'll be a burst. You're going to get a whole new burst of strengths twins results. It got me thinking. It's like, I think I filled that out when you first opened it. I
believe you did. Yes, you're in there somewhere. Yes.
And then can I go back if I did it before? Could I go back and see, or how would I refresh that if I wanted to see?
Once you're in there, unless you tell me otherwise, to take your name out of it. And if I come across a match which matches your top 5 themes, then you will get an email to say, hey, here's your twin.
I guess I don't have a twin. I haven't gotten that email. So.
You're still unique at the moment.
I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay both being the same and unique. So it's okay. We've all got things to do. Anything else on strengths twins that I missed before we dive
I think that's probably it at the moment. It's been a great fun project, and I've really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, it's a great community project, and one that I'm excited to see kind of grow over time as folks go in. So if you're listening to this again, head out there. You can do it absolutely free. It's all anonymous. Head out there and get that done. Okay, let's talk about Cascade, because this has been a licensed product from Gallup. You went through the processes to get this licensed with us. Can you talk a little? Let's get a little overview. What is Cascade? Many in the chat have come today because they love Cascade. I'm not going to lie. Over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, Cascade has gotten more love than any other product that I've seen. So congratulations. You've done really, really well with that product. But give us a little idea. What is it? Why'd you develop it? Talk a little bit about it.
Okay. Cascade started about 3 years ago, where I needed something for my own coaching business. And I realized that Gallup had a huge amount of information, a huge wealth of resources. And I just wanted to package them up so I could then quickly and easily produce them for my clients that I was coaching at the time. And so that's how it really started. And then it was probably about just over a year ago that I was showing it to another coach, and they said, hey, you've got to get it out there. So I thought, okay, let's package it up. Let's have it so it's a product in its own right. Put it on there, and somebody bought it. And I thought, oh, well, actually paying me for something I've done. I thought that's fantastic. So things just sort of trickled along a little bit. And then it was at the beginning of 2017. I was made redundant from my work, and I felt very strongly not to go back into full-time employment again. So I thought, I'll just pursue the things that I love doing. And there are 2 things I pursued. One was doing coaching work within the church environment, which I've just been talking about. And the second one was just throw lots of energy and resources into Cascade. And so that's what I've done. And that's where sort of things got bigger and bigger. And then it was at the summit last year when there was a lot of interest in it. And I thought, okay, this is getting serious now. Let's approach the Gallup Press team and let's get this official and let's see what we can do. So 6 months later, so January 2018, got the final sort of license agreement all signed and sealed with that. And Jessica Kennedy, who I believe is going to be talking to you fairly soon, she was absolutely brilliant through that process and definitely worth talking to. And it's just been absolutely fantastic from then. And so that's the sort of story behind it. Let me explain a little bit more about what it is. It primarily does 4 things. It's a repository to actually store all the themes of all your clients in one place. So somebody you've coached a long time ago, you'll be able to look them up very, very quickly. Or if you're working with lots of different teams, they would all be in the same place. All their themes would be in the same place with that. It's also a massive time saver. So if you want to create name tents or badges or reports, really quick, really easy, you can just rattle them straight off. No mail merging or messing around with that. It's just straight off on that. It also provides a set of really professional looking reports, which are tailored very specifically to the team or to the individual. And we'll look at a few of those in a moment. And then what it also does in the final piece, we've touched on the power of 2. There's a special report to help with that coaching conversation. So it puts the themes together in a matrix, and then you can see how those themes can work well together or may conflict a little bit with each other. So it provides those extra coaching resources. So that's really sort of it in a nutshell in those terms.
I was super glad you did this. One, we struggled for a long time with our own team grid. The Excel team grid that we have has always struggled. The folks have struggled to use it. I was kind of glad you came up with an easier use of team grid. We have since rewritten that grid. It's available in Gallup Access. Not all our coaches have access to that yet. And so this is jumping in and filling this gap right now is incredible. So thanks for doing that. By the way, Kevin in the chat room said Cascade is the best thing to come out of Britain since fish and chips. So that's, there you go. That's a great. And then Joe is asking in the chat room, how many people are using Cascade? How many customers do you have?
We've got about 250 at the moment, and it's growing rapidly. And I produce a newsletter once a month, Cascade Connection, where we talk about some of the reports and we just talk about how we can use it a bit better or apply the reports a little bit better in workshops.
Do you have to be a customer to be on that newsletter? Or
not at all. No, you can sign up on that on the Cascade shop. Yep.
And then how are you working pricing on this? And this is actually, I don't know. So I'm hoping I'm not opening a can of worms, but generally when you talk about pricing, how does that work?
There are two sort of flavors of Cascade. There's Cascade Professional, which is aimed at organizations. So if you're part of a department and you want several people to use Cascade within that office, you can then have Cascade Professional, which will run with that. There's then Cascade Personal, which is at a slightly cheaper rate, which is designed for self-employed coaches. So if you're a coach, you set out on your own, there's a slightly cheaper version for you. And it's a little bit like sort of Microsoft Office, the student version. So it's just priced slightly better in that sense. So that's the base product. And then while we're talking about these things, there's then a bonus pack you can add on. And so if you're working with teams, or you're working with people beyond their top 5 themes, then the bonus pack will give you some extra reports and take reports a little bit deeper for you with those extra themes on there. And so at the moment, you can store 500 clients in one copy of Cascade. But if you want to take that further, there's then a Go Large module, which you can pop in there, which will take it up to 2,000. So
I might hashtag that Go Large. I like that, the Go Large option. How about translations in there? Where are you at with that?
At the moment, we've got 2 languages in there, English American and English UK.
I love how you separate those two, so I appreciate that.
We would very much like to add in other languages as well, but that's something I need to talk to the IP people about and get the proper permissions on that side of things.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky when we start thinking about translations. We're going to spend a little bit of time going through some screenshots. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, it might be worth it to head over to the Gallup Strength Center channel on YouTube and find this. Actually, if you just Google "Called to Coach" Richard Sterry right now, you'll find the YouTube video associated with it. And this is the part where you're going to want to be on YouTube, because Richard's going to walk through some screenshots of what you have. So Richard, I'm going to back up a little bit, walk through, give us the best of what you got, kind of talk through what somebody would get.
Okay, I'm just going to see if I can share my screen and just get that up. So we should see how we do that. Right, okay, let's try that. Now you should find coming up, you've got what looks like a bit of a spreadsheet, because Cascade, it runs on Excel. It needs to have a full version of Excel on your computer, and your computer can be either Windows or Mac. So it runs on both different platforms on here. So what we've got here is that we've got a whole load of names, which are on here, and a whole load of themes which are over to the right hand side. And this is deliberately arranged so that if you have had your clients take the Clifton Strengths Assessment through the Gallup Strength Center, you can export a file from there and you can copy and paste it directly here into Cascade. So it fits perfectly on that basis. So that's one way of getting all the names and themes into here. Another way of doing it is simply by just selecting the themes from the drop-down lists. And it's most crucial with this that the themes are spelt correctly. So self-assurance needs to have that hyphen in between, because that was my trigger point for leaving the Gallup spreadsheet and setting something up for myself so that it actually has the words spelt exactly in the right way.
Kind of drop down. Hey, do I need to have Excel to make this work? Is that a requirement for me?
You do need to have Excel, and it needs to be a Microsoft Excel, not LibreOffice or Numbers or something like that. There's a lot of automation behind this. There are a lot of macros, lots of coding, really to make life a lot easier, but it does need to use all the features of Excel.
Perfect. Keep going.
Okay. And then on the left-hand side, there are several columns where you can throw in any category you want to work out who's who. So you may have an organization in there, you may have what team they're in, what department they're in, maybe what level they're at, and manager or staff. However you have your clients and however you want to group them, there are 4 columns you can play with to say how you want to group them on there. Now, this is a difficult bit. Once you've got the information in, that's it. It's all in. What I do need just to say is that this goes up to 5 themes here. The page does go all the way down to 34, so it can deal with all 34 themes on here as well. So once the information is in, we can then jump over to the team grid. And here is the team grid where you can see everything is already populated. We've got the 4 domains across the top with all the different totals and percentages already populated in there. And we've got the total numbers for each theme represented here. So our top 5 for these particular people are in the green. You can see these are the top 5 themes for them. And where only one person has a theme, such as positivity here, it's in blue. So you can very quickly see what the unique themes are and what the popular themes are. Going back to our categories, which we looked at earlier, we've then got drop-down lists where we can then select what we want or who we want to have in our team. So for example, where we've got different teams here, we can then say, okay, I just want to have the green team and the red team, and then it'll just pick up straight on those different teams. We've also got slightly to the right-hand side, I've just come across to it, these are the total numbers of themes per domain, which is quite useful sometimes if you want to try and identify who the people are who've got more themes in a particular domain. And you can sort by any of these columns, so you can sort by the people who've got sort of more influencing themes than the others and things like that. You can also sort by a particular theme as well, and you can select by a particular theme. So you can select, say, all the maximizers, and then grab their email addresses and send them an email to say, hey, listen to this theme Thursday on Maximizer, or whatever the situation may be. So once the selection is made here in the team grid, all the other reports will hang off this selection, which is made here. And so what we've got is that we've got a frequency chart, which is automatically generated, and you don't have to do any working out, it's just there. Incidentally, on this page, if you want to create a word cloud, all the text for the word cloud is in this cell here. So just copy and paste this text straight into your word cloud generator, whichever one you want to use on the internet, and there's your word cloud. So really quick and easy to make a word cloud for the very particular team that you're working with. The next report is what I call the spark chart. And this is a little bit different. You may not have seen this one before. And essentially, it's all the themes going around the outside in their different domains. And the longer the line, the more people in that team have got that particular theme. So we can see in this group that a ranger is the most popular, with 4 people having a ranger, and then we've got 3 people with the achiever, relator, and these other themes down the bottom. When you're working with lots of different teams, seeing the spark chart for each team, that can be really revealing in the characteristics of that team, how the themes are balanced according to domain, whether a lot of people have lots of similar themes, or whether they have a wide range of diverse themes. Just in one diagram, really, really insightful.
Richard, before you move on, this is a fairly new chart, I think, for a lot of folks. Is this a standard chart that you came up with somewhere, or was this your own invention, or you seen this before? How'd you come across this?
This is something which I came across also. I sort of worked out this is how we can do it. I can't remember where I may have seen it before somewhere, but trying to get Excel to do this, there's quite a lot of number crunching and things going behind it. And it's not a standard Excel report, but it's sort of derived from various features within Excel.
Have you gotten any feedback from this report for how folks are using it successfully?
It's really looking at teams, and from what I'm hearing, people who are more analytical love the visualization, love seeing things in a pictorial way, so they can start to understand the team a little bit more and start to sort of work out, okay, this is what the team looks like in this sort of star or spark shape, and then compare that to another team, and that's what they look like in there.
Yeah, I think for most coaches, this is going to be a fairly new report, and so make sure. I really like it. Well, I was, when I got onto this team 6 years ago, and we started thinking through this, I was always hoping we would have coaches that would come up with super creative solutions like this for the community, and so great job on doing that. So keep going.
Okay, what we've got now is a combination of what we've just been looking at. So here is on a page, you've got your theme frequencies, you've got your spark chart, there's a pie chart in there as well, so you can see the distribution of the themes for the team across the domains, and you've got your top 5 themes for the team in there. And so that's looking at what the team can really bring as a team, what they need, and how they can be motivated. So that's looking at a team, and so on a single page, that's a really good way to actually say, okay, this is the team on a page.
And I'm assuming that prints out. If I wanted to print copies of that, I can just send that to the printer. Both American and European versions available that way?
It resizes to whatever paper size you use and to A4 that we use on that. And there are also some coaches who print it on A2 paper, which is pretty big. And they do a great big wall chart. And so that can go on the wall. So it'll resize to whatever paper size you use. You can save it as a PDF. You can take a screen clipping and put it straight into PowerPoint. There are lots of things you can do with that. In fact, you can do all those things with all these different reports we're talking about.
And Dion, I think this week took our results from India, imported them in, did some work, not at an individual level, of course, but he brought the theme frequencies in and I think generated some reports out of a Cascade as well.
He did, excellent. And it's a way where you can just put the information in on the first table, and then all these reports are ready to roll. They're, you just click on them and there they are for you. What I do need to mention, I spoke about the bonus pack earlier on. This particular report is only in the bonus pack. So if you want this report, which I know is a popular one, it's the bonus pack that you need. And usually most coaches, they tend to go for the bonus pack anyway.
Awesome. Good upsell there.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Yeah, something very, very different again is looking at the themes in a slightly different way. And again, this is just another view of seeing the same information. And sometimes this appeals to some people and not to others. But the little pie charts represent the domains which that person has in their top 5. And you can see very, very quickly, just looking at the colors, which domains they're coming from. And if someone's struggling to try and get their head around all 34 themes, just focusing on 4 domains may be an easier concept for them.
Richard, we've had some folks, the colors that we use on the domains are sometimes hard to differentiate, especially the purple and the blue are hard to differentiate. If we change those colors, how hard would it be for you? How much work would you have to do to go back in and change these?
If you say we as in Gallup?
Gallup is, we definitely the royal we.
Okay. Technically it's possible. Yes, it would be quite a bit of work to do that. But I've deliberately kept with the Gallup colors, and that's something I needed to do for the licensing agreement as well. So it does stick.
You did the right thing from that standpoint. I had somebody contact me and said, well, that should be pretty easy just to change those colors, right? And I was like, well, they're kind of embedded in a whole bunch of things all over the place, and we're going to mess a whole bunch of people up if we change those. We are looking, just as a side note, we are looking at changing the colors in the long term just to make them better for folks who have color blindness, and so we can tell the difference between them and such like that. No plans to do that now, but that is being looked at. I'll just throw that out as a general warning. We don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that because we want to get to more of what you have. Okay.
If you know Excel, there's a lot of conditional formatting behind this. So yes, so this is just another report, so you can see the different people on here, and you can just see where they're coming from their domain. If you coach with all 34 themes, this is a really busy report, but enables you to see all 34 themes side by side. There's a lot of information here, and so what you can do is you can select a particular theme, and it'll then show you where that theme is. So we've got adaptability, which is really high here, but it's really low down for these people over here. It's quite a busy screen, so we can change the view very easily. Just take out the middle bits. We've got the top 10 and we've got the bottom 5 to play with. And it's, again, you can just select from these boxes here, you can just select different people if you want to have somebody else in there. So very easy to do and very easy to change for different people. So great if you're coaching all 34. If perhaps you're coaching somebody on a one-to-one basis, put your 34 themes against their 34 themes. See what they look like. See where the issues or where the areas of resonance may be. We've spoken quite a bit today about the power of 2. This is the power of 2 chart that we have, and it's very much a worksheet. So it's a matter of selecting 2 people from the drop-down lists here. And these lists are created from the team grid, which we defined earlier, who was going to be on that. And we've got one person's themes across the top. We've got the other person's themes down the side. And then we look at the intersect. So, for example, where empathy meets commands, how could they really work together? How could they really help each other out? Or how perhaps could they really trip each other up? So lots of conversation pieces there. And that's quite a discussion piece that we had on one of our recent newsletters that went out. Different coaches were giving their opinions. And this report can be used either for a manager and a member of staff, or perhaps 2 members of staff who are working together, or maybe in conflicts, or it could be in a marriage situation, so it doesn't need to be in the workplace, it could be sort of outside that. Any 2 people who are together have a look to see how one person's themes are working with the other person. It could be with a parent and a child if they're both taken the adult version of the assessments. So any pairing of people coming together, see what could be brilliant about the relationship and be aware of what could trip each other up, and then see what action points are needed to actually take it forward.
Yeah, and I'd actually recommend that book, Power of Two, for folks who don't know what we're talking about. We have a book called The Power of Two, written several years ago now, and just a really powerful book about the power of partnerships and putting those together. So if you haven't read that yet, this still makes sense without it, but some very powerful stories in that book as well.
And there's a lot more information in that book of The Power of Two as to what elements are needed to really get that trust level up high and for that partnership to be really, really effective.
Richard, there was a comment in chat back to those pie charts. Veronica said she wishes she could paste the pie charts into the name tents and badges.
I've had that request, I think, from somewhere else as well. I'm looking at reviewing the name tents at some point, and maybe the badges. Badges is going to be a little bit more complicated, but certainly something with the name tents, that might be something we may be able to include on that.
Yeah, it's surprising how hard name tents and badges can be. This is an area we, early on in the early days, a lot of folks were like, is there just a template for that? And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do to get right. It's a hard thing to do to merge. It's a hard thing to do to print. So you've made that kind of easy. I know
it is really, really easy. I'm going to move on to that in just a moment on that, and that I'll physically show you a name tent as well with that. But I think if it was Veronica who mentioned that question, do drop that question into my to me directly, and I'll make sure it's included next time so that we can include that in the amendments and things.
Super.
So we've talked about all the different reports and things which involve more than one person. Now let's move on to the individual reports. And this is where there's a whole series of reports. These are the green tabs along the bottom, where you select a name on here, or you select a name on another page, and it just sort of sorts it all out for that one person. And then you've got a whole load of reports just for this one person. So we've got here the information from the theme insight cards. So this is real gold dust to give somebody when they've either finished a coaching session, so they've got a really good takeaway with them, or at the beginning of the session, so they can start to look at it and actually see all their themes together and all the information which goes with them at the same time. So really powerful report, that one, and that's used a lot, I know, in different coaching sessions. And the other really powerful report for the individuals is what we call the bring and need reports. I might just expand that a little bit just so you can see it a bit better. Essentially, on one, it's got the top 5 themes for the person, and on the left-hand side are all the contributions of the themes. Now, this is an expanded list of contributions, and it's a whole load of information come together, which gives a whole load of different contributions that particular theme can give. On the right-hand side are the things that theme needs to be energized in order to make those contributions. And this has been such a powerful report in lots of different ways, so that a manager, if they've got this for each member of their team, and they can supply for each person the needs for their themes, the contributions will follow. Likewise, if someone is feeling a little bit down or a little bit demotivated, have a look at the needs. Are they being met? If not, what tangible things can you do to help meet those needs? And then build on that, and then you'll see the contributions will flow afterwards.
No, that's a great conversation. I'm sure you have found that. Have you used this in the work that you're doing with your church? This seems to be a
very
really
much so
one.
Yes. And dare I say it, this is a report which a lot of people resonate with. Sometimes they struggle with some of their other reports, but this one, because it's short, clear, and fairly concise, they would find a few pieces on that report which really, really resonate with them, and empowers them to say, okay, this is what I can do.
Richard, Joe is asking the column on the right, that third column on the right. What is that? He doesn't see that.
Those are just purely instructions talking about the page itself. So they don't actually get printed out. If we look at what the printout looks like, it simply just comes out like that.
Okay.
So they're just instructions on there, so to help you use that report in a coaching situation.
So, Joe, if you're not seeing him, it sounds like you need to contact support. Just kidding. I always wanted to say that for somebody else.
Brilliant, thank you. And then we've got the name tent. And I'm just coming off the sharing screen. I can show you a physical name tent on here. How do I get off the screen share?
Same button you used to jump on there.
Yes, there we go.
Perfect.
So, am I off? Yes, I'm off. Excellent. Great. So with a name tent, they are very easy to print from one of the reports. And this is a name tent which I did for myself, which prints out. You then put 3 folds in it, and there it is. It's ready to go. It's as simple as that. No mail merging. It's just straight from Cascade. And it's got the themes in their domain colors as well. So that helps to provide a little bit more subject matter as well.
Sharp looking tent.
What you can also do, you can drop your logo or any words or text and things onto that as well. Very, very easy to do on that side of things, and very easy to produce. And with the bonus pack, you can just rattle off a whole load of name tents very easily for the whole team.
So Joe found his problem, by the way. He doesn't need to contact you. He says, the latest version has that column. So he must not be running the latest version. So there you go.
Could well be. That was recently introduced a few weeks ago on that.
Yes. Sure you're using the updated version at all times.
Yes.
Yeah, those name tents, by the way, are just gold. That, when you're doing an engagement, of course, we have our own version of that. I'll tell coaches, do not miss the opportunity to put your logo on there. Like, this is your thing. That was another thing. We had a lot of folks trying to copy our version of it. And it's like, no, this is your opportunity to be creative. You're going to talk about name tags here in a second. This is your opportunity to really brand you in this. This is super important. So don't miss this. Show us the next thing, Richard.
Yeah, the final piece is all the name badges. And I think this is probably the best way to physically show you with that. That's just a whole selection of name badges and lanyards and other things you can create from this. And it's purely a matter of saying what paper size you've got, how many labels you've got, and what the matrix grid looks like. Set it all up, and then choosing your colors, and then just the people from the team grid will drop into that, and then you can print them off. So very easy to print those off once you've got that set up.
And that's just a dynamite area to put your own brand. Like you got an opportunity to shine at this point. So I really love that. I love the fact that you're licensed with us, because now I can say, when people ask this, I'm like, you got to go to Cascade. Like, that is you have such a really good product. Anything that we missed in that?
I think that's probably most of the things at the moment, and that's where sort of the key things are and so on. But all these things have come about because either I needed them for one of my coaching sessions, or somebody else needed them for their coaching session, and it's all come about what's really practical, what really works, and what's most helpful.
Yeah. No, and Stu is asking in the chat room, how often do you version your releases, and how do folks get notified when there's a new version?
Yep, in the Cascade connection that comes out once a month, I would say what the current version is, and what changes there are as well. There is a full change log as well, so you can see what's happening. And updates are coming out roughly once a month, and anybody can ask for an update at any time, and I'll just ping you a new update as and when you want it on there. When you purchase Cascade, it's a one-time fee, and that will give you 12 months of free updates and free support. And then for a few dollars, you can then have another 12 months after that.
And then, so Jose says he just purchased mine. How does he get the Excel file?
If he's just purchased it, he should have, as in literally during the call. I'll do it straight afterwards.
It still takes a little bit of finger pushing.
There is a little bit, but most of that is now automated. So as soon as I receive those or get notification of them, I get them out straight away. But please bear in mind, I'm in the UK, and I do have some times when I need to sleep.
Yes. No, and the same goes for me, by the way. I just sleep less than most people, but it's just know when you're sending that request off. It's going to be, we do need to let Richard get a little sleep in the process as well. You mentioned you like me are supporting clients around the world. And so your friends in Asia are up when you're up early for them, you're supporting the UK during the day, and then the United States and most of North America, North and South America, you would do. So it's very, very busy. Ricardo had asked, so when you think about doing the translations, Is that something you'd be open to some community involvement if there were some coaches that wanted to help in that? Would that be something that maybe they could do?
Absolutely. And in fact, we did work on a French version, and it was very much sort of created with French people involved on that. For licensing purposes, we can't include that at the moment, but that's something which I'd like to work on. And then once we can deal with that, then yes, it's very much a community piece, because essentially this is producing a product for coaches to use. So having that collaboration really will work.
Yeah, no, I always appreciate that if we can collaborate across and get it done. I appreciate that. Let's see. Anything, Richard, anything that I missed? We covered a lot of material. I have a feeling you're going to get a run. We needed to have a bell set up to sales, like so we could hear ding, ding, because I think
I would love to. Have to look at my website stats in a few minutes. I'm just going to share my screen again because it's just something I want to show you. And we're just going to get something up on the screen. And although Cascade has just been going a few months, you will see with this chart here that its reach across the world is now in 27 different countries. It's amazing how quickly it's taken off, how diverse it is. Yes, most of the people using Cascade are in the US, which is great, which is wonderful. Quite a few in Europe, lots in New Zealand, Australia, and all other countries as well. So it's amazing how quickly things happen. And talking of countries, we spoke earlier about the Strengths Twins and people registering for that. We've got people from 49 different countries registering for Strengths Twins at the moment. So lots and lots of things happening all over the world, which is just fantastic to see and fantastic to be involved with.
No, right on. Congratulations on getting all of that done. And that's pretty amazing to see around the world. We see a big group there in the United States, which is great. Way to go, United States, for supporting this. I'll re-emphasize this. This is a Gallup licensed product, which means that Richard's gone through a process with us and gone through licensing all the IP. And then he's able to sell that, and we're able to talk about that. I know when we first licensed you, and I kind of I said in our pre-call to you a little bit, we've been cutting our teeth, so to speak, on that's probably not a good thing to say in an international audience. We have been learning a little bit through licensing with you, Richard. We appreciate your patience with us. It has been a journey for us as well, figuring out what are the right things to do and how do we get this done. And it's a long process. We've shortened that up some, but it still just takes a while to get all these things worked out. So, Richard, thank you for sticking with it. By the way, I've been most excited about this product. We are going to be featuring these in Call to Coaches coming up in the future as we license these products. We'll have those folks on to talk about it. I think you're going to get a lot of great customers out of this as well. Thanks for all the work that you do there in the UK, as well as coaching and working with your church. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to add to the licensing side of things, this was the first digital product to be licensed. So that had its own complications. I'm also not in the US, so there again were a few extra bits and pieces to deal with. And that's partly why it took so long on that basis.
Yeah.
But one thing that really, really helped during that time was the support from other coaches. I'm involved in a mastermind group with about 17 of us, and we get together on a monthly basis. Absolutely brilliant. And I would say as a coach, being involved and close networking with other coaches, absolutely essential for anything that you're trying to do.
No, right on. Do you have a testimony spot on your page, on your site somewhere? Where
there is very much so, and it's full of loads of wonderful testimonies on there on that. So do have a look at that. And if anybody's using Cascade and hasn't written a testimony, please do say what you think, and let's hear that.
Get your name on there as well. Well, it has been a whole string of testimonial encouragement in the chat room today, and I want to thank everybody for coming out on this Tuesday to do a Call to Coach. That's unusual because we normally do them Friday, but on this Tuesday to be a part of this webcast. Richard, again, thanks again for coming on. Hang tight with me for 1 second here. We'll close things up. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Well, remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments if you'd like to be a guest blogger, if you got something you want to write about around that's strengths-based. Send us an email. We're looking for 400 to 600 words. Strengths related will help you with the writing, even if that's what you need. Coaching@gallup.com, and put guest blogger in the subject line. Don't forget, this is recorded. If you're listening to the audio and you need to get the video, all the resources, all the links, everything we do, our resources tab, much like Richard's Cascade, our resources tab has a ton of information for you. I've spent my life trying to build that thing out. It's available on our coaches blog. Go to coaching.gallup.com and click on the resources tab. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, just like Richard is, you can see a list of all our courses that lead to that. By the way, the Clifton Strength Summit is coming up July 16th, 17th, and 18th. And a good opportunity, Richard, I know I'm going to see you there, which is yep. Right. Yeah. And first time in the United States, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Welcome. And Omaha is the best place to go in the United States, by the way. So once you're here, you'll never need to go anywhere else because it's the greatest here. But all those courses are available at 15% discount, dude, during the summit. Still time, even though it's the 1st of May, still time to take advantage of that. Head out to cliftonstrengthsummit.com, and all that information, including hotels and travel and transport and all that other stuff that you need to know, is available on the FAQ page out there as well. If you are coming to the summit, looking forward to seeing you there. It's going to be great fun. We'll ask you to join our Facebook group. Remember, we have the #StrengthsTwins challenge going on in the Facebook group. How has that been successful for you? Head out to facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach. We'll get you there as well. Almost 11,000, Richard, in that group. It's getting pretty big, so it's pretty cool. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. We'll look forward to the next Call to Coach. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.